Bonsoir à toutes et tous, j'espère que vous allez bien.
Welcome everyone.
Je suis Cyrielle Ariel, je suis
How are you all
journaliste
doing? My name is Cyrielle Ariel. I'm an impact journalist. I specialize in CSR and sustainable development. And I am absolutely delighted to welcome you to the second edition of Generation Hydrogène. Why did we organize this show? Good question. Let's find out. Roll video.
It is a global challenge. Most of us agree that we need to act.
Quel risque pour le monde? D'ici 2030, 120 millions de personnes seront victimes de la sécheresse, des inondations, de la chaleur extrême. C'est évidemment de nature à remettre en cause la vie d'un certain nombre d'entre nous.
L'effort demandé est extraordinaire, mais lorsque les peuples travaillent main dans la main, les opportunités d'agir courageusement pour l'avenir sont tout aussi exceptionnelles.
We need more solutions. Hydrogen has been called the Swiss Army knife of decarbonization.
Eh bien oui, nous parlons d'urgence climatique.
Yes, we are discussing the emergency of climate change, the energy mix, clean mobility, industrial renewal, energy sovereignty. Those are some of the key challenges that we are faced with today. And one way or the other, hydrogen is part of the solution. So, over the next 70 minutes or so, we are going to talk about hydrogen, the molecule itself, how it is used, its potential, its future. We have on set a diverse panel of inspiring speakers who'll discuss interesting topics. There will be field reports as well. And we have an audience on set and remote participants as well. And to those of you watching, pay attention. A competition will be kicked off at the end of the show. You get to win the chance to experience hydrogen in new ways. More on that later. In the meantime, allow me to invite François Jacob, CEO of Liquide and content creator Gaspard G. Join me on set.
Bonjour messieurs, je suis ravie de vous accueillir sur mon plateau.
Welcome on set, François Jacob and Gaspard G. Let's start with you, François. Hydrogen, is that something you truly believe in?
Totalement. Bonjour Cyrielle.
Totally. Good evening, Cyrielle, Gaspard, and hello to everyone here in the studio and also to everyone joining us. We're going to be talking about hydrogen, so we're going to talk about the future. And I have a conviction that hydrogen will be part of everyone's future. And that's actually good news, because it is going to lead us towards a world that is going to be low carbon, which will preserve the planet and people living on it.
As a journalist, I can tell you that hydrogen is making regular headlines. How come?
Alors c'est vrai qu'on n'a jamais parlé autant.
Well, it's true that we've never spoken about hydrogen as much as we are right now. And there are two things that have to be done right now when it comes to hydrogen. We have to understand that it is a fundamental part of decarbonization of industry and transport, the energy transition. But it's also a way of strengthening energy sovereignty. Hydrogen is a fundamental part of our economies, but also society generally speaking. But it's also a very complex issue. And our role is to explain what is at stake when it comes to developing this and also organizing a constructive debate around it.
Thank you, François Jacob. Let's also welcome Gaspard G. You're a fellow journalist and also a content creator with over 30,000 followers. I think you did a vox pop, asking young people how much they know or how they feel about hydrogen.
You're exactly right, Ariel. So hydrogen is one of the most hot topics right now, but it's also deeply misunderstood by a lot of people. People speak of a future without fossil fuels, it's going to replace car fuel. So I took to the streets with my cameraman to ask people what they thought or what they knew about hydrogen. Let's have a look.
Oui, absolument, Gaspard sur le plateau. Nous sommes ici, place de la République, où nous allons demander aux Français ce qu'ils savent vraiment de l'hydrogène. Allez, venez avec moi. Si je te parle d'hydrogène, est-ce que tu sais ce que c'est?
C'est très flou, je dois avouer, c'est très flou. Mais rien du tout.
Rien du tout? Est-ce que ça te parle ou pas du tout?
Pas du tout.
Tu sais pas du tout ce que c'est?
Non. C'est une molécule présente dans l'eau.
Une molécule présente dans l'eau, c'est un début de bonne réponse, c'est pas mal.
J'ai l'impression que c'est un peu l'énergie révolutionnaire dans 10 ans, quoi.
T'es eu combien au bac de sciences?
J'étais en L déjà.
T'étais en L? Des voitures à hydrogène. J'aimerais bien voir ça. On peut utiliser des voitures à hydrogène. Est-ce que vous en aviez déjà entendu parler?
Un peu dans les États-Unis, mais pas beaucoup.
Je pense que ça peut être réel. Il y a tellement d'évolution de nos jours que tout est possible, je pense. Avec le temps peut-être, mais peut-être pas encore.
Est-ce que nous, on est la génération hydrogène?
J'ai l'impression que c'est notre génération, qu'on va évoluer avec l'hydrogène.
Ça m'évoque vous et moi et nous et le futur. Le futur qui doit être maintenant.
Donc je sais pas, génération hydrogène, je me dis c'est nous quoi, les jeunes entre guillemets.
Ils utilisent des voitures plus saines qui polluent moins. I think we're getting there, closer than we were, but I think it'll be a few years, especially in the States, maybe sooner in France.
On a besoin de plus de recul sur la question.
C'est une nouvelle manière de fonctionner, une nouvelle manière de penser, de consommer.
Pour faire face à tout le réchauffement climatique, toute la pollution.
Notre génération, on est vachement tourné vers la planète, tout faire pour que ça s'améliore. Donc je pense que si effectivement l'hydrogène est mieux que ce qu'on a en termes de gasoil, je pense que oui, potentiellement les gens peuvent se diriger là-dessus.
Bon, ok, les gens en savent un peu plus que ce que je pensais sur le sujet. Reste qu'il y a encore un peu de boulot.
On va pas se mentir.
Look, it's true. There is a lot of road yet to be traveled. So the French people, they don't know a lot about the topic, but there are three things that I learned. Fundamentally, it's undeniable. This is a hot topic for a lot of people. Second, when we talk through exactly what hydrogen is all about, we see that this is gaining ground and it is becoming a major part of energy management issues. And third, as you saw, there are a lot of young people on that video, so the younger generations, they are more up to date with what's happening than the older generations.
François Jacob, how do you feel about this? Do those answers surprise you?
Non, je suis pas vraiment étonné des réponses.
Well, I'm not really surprised by what we saw in that video, and it's normal that hydrogen, well, not everyone knows about it, but it raises a number of issues. We need to talk about this, discuss it, and everyone has a role to play. I think on one side of the debate, you have scientists and companies who are the experts, and on the other side, there are politicians and civil society. And it really is a choice that belongs to society. We all need to understand our roles as citizens, but also as consumers.
And that's the whole point of today's show. We're putting hydrogen at the core of today's discussions, bringing in participants, whether on set or remotely, that are all instrumental in developing a hydrogen-driven society. Thank you so much, Gaspard. François, stay with me. Now, let's get down to brass tacks. Let's discuss climate change and the energy transition with our next guest, Nathalie Ilmy.
Bonjour Nathalie, merci infiniment.
Hello Nathalie, thank you so much for joining us virtually.
Vous êtes experte du
You're
GIEC,
an expert for the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which issued its sixth report last year and this year, according to which the climate change situation is dire. Do we still have a chance? Hello, everyone. Yes, the emergency has never been more severe. If we do nothing, the trajectory will reach 2.9 to 3.2 degrees centigrade. And to cap global warming at 1.5 degrees, we need to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions by 43% by 2030. Nathalie Ilmy, are there workable solutions, short-term, to tip the scales? Around the world, fossil fuel subsidies are about twice as high as subsidies for renewables. Major transitions are needed in order to limit global warming. This means a significant reduction in the use of fossil fuels, large-scale electrification, improved energy efficiency using replacement fuels such as hydrogen and sustainable biofuels, and also the use of CCS, carbon capture and storage, either using technologies or relying on nature. Nature is responsible for removing about 38% of atmospheric CO2. Thank you so much, Nathalie Ilmy. Over to you, François, Jacob. What about your activities? In which areas should you drive things first?
Well, we have to take action and we have to act now. But it's really a revolution because we have to invent a carbon-free industry and carbon-free mobility. Currently, industry accounts for 20% of CO2 emissions, mobility makes up for 25% of those emissions. And hydrogen can really help us take that carbon-free. Going carbon-free, well, there are three parts to it. Going electric through uses means developing electricity, low-carbon electricity. It also means mass production of low-carbon hydrogen. And for that, using low-carbon electricity, such as renewables or nuclear. Or it could also mean capturing CO2 when that hydrogen is made using fossil fuels. And lastly, it also means transforming industrial processes with hydrogen. And it also means taking heavy transport carbon-free, heavy transport being for people and goods.
François Jacob, est-ce que l'hydrogène, c'est la solution?
Is hydrogen the solution?
Well, the energy transition will have to involve hydrogen. But hydrogen alone won't cover everything. Hydrogen will play a large place within the energy mix now and tomorrow. But thinking of 2050, 20% of all global energy demands will have to be covered by hydrogen. That is a huge portion, especially when we think that today it's practically zero. So we have to bear in mind that here we're talking about promoting technical solutions, but also changes in habits and our uses.
Now, a number of countries understand that hydrogen will play a key role in the next few years. To discuss those strategies, let us welcome Miko Murad.
Bonjour Miko, merci infiniment.
Hello Miko, thank you so much for joining us on set tonight.
Vous êtes auteur également.
You are a writer, you're also a teacher, you specialize in geopolitics and the geoeconomics of climate change, and of course you specialize in hydrogen. And you've brought a few maps to explain to us what's going on.
You're exactly right, it's very hard to understand what is at stake for countries, for the geopolitical side of things, the hydrogen strategy. And we need a number of maps to understand what's at play. So here you have a map showing you all the countries of the world that have a strategy, or just a roadmap. There is a distinction there, but here we're going to talk about strategies. A strategy for hydrogen. So what you can see here is in green those countries that have a strategy. In blue, those countries with an industry, be it official or non-official. And in orange, you have those countries that are already working on coming up with a hydrogen strategy. And here with the figures, you have pre-COVID figures, 10 countries in the world with an official hydrogen strategy. Post-COVID, so that's 2 years, we have 34 countries with a hydrogen strategy. So this is a turning point in the change that we're seeing. It's not just an energy matter, it's not just because of the war in Ukraine. This is tied to a true understanding where public funding is being put in to recovery packages around the world. So hydrogen is part and parcel of a lot of those packages, and now that roughly 30 of them are working actively on coming up with a hydrogen strategy, pretty much for the same reasons, either with public money or with international funding.
Your maps clearly show that a hydrogen transition is emerging across the world. In practical terms, how will this change the global energy landscape in the long run?
Well, the big question that everyone is asking is, just like what happened after the petrol changes, now we're talking about hydrogen being part of the energy mix. Will it replace a lot of those hydrocarbons, which still make up for 83% of global energy demand? The answer is yes, but partially. A lot of global studies on the matter show that hydrogen is roughly about 10 to 25% of global energy mix, global energy demand. But when we look at a lot of the hydrogen projects or investment being put into hydrogen that you can see here, we can see production programs. We also have consumer programs for transport. And here you can see these are projects for 2021. But 2022, we already have a few figures coming through the market for a lot of new investment going into hydrogen, $250 billion around the world, 680 projects in 2022. And of those 680 projects, what we need to bear in mind is that less than 10% of them have already reached the final investment decision phase. So here we're talking about concrete projects. So you've got these two maps at play here, potential projects and real projects, and this gives you an understanding of the major areas in the world that are going to or are likely going to become large producers and therefore hydrogen exporters. So now we can divide the world into different groups, 3 groups of countries. You have importer countries like Germany, South Korea, Japan. They've got a lot of potential. They've been investing in hydrogen for a long time now, big ecosystem in play, and they've got a lot of resources at play, but they need to be able to find ways to produce a low-carbon hydrogen en masse. Second group of countries, these are petrol-producing or gas-producing countries, and by 2030, 40, 50, they know that with the increasing carbon taxes and also with the fact that, well, hydrocarbons, they're no longer going to be appealing to a lot of people, they know that they have to find something to substitute out those hydrocarbons, and these are countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Russia. But also, we also have those countries that aren't energy producers like Morocco, Namibia, or even Chile. Chile, it's a minor player in the energy market, and thanks to hydrogen, they're thinking, hey, I can make my own value chain for energy, for hydrogen. And maybe they'll become the next hydrogen emirate.
François, over to you. What are your thoughts on those assessments and strategies?
I think what comes through here is that on top of the cost and the environmental footprint, we're talking about sovereignty, and countries are focusing on that. So being there as a hydrogen player is fundamental.
Do you think some countries will turn into hydrogen champions, and if so, which ones?
Again, what we can see happening is there are 2 groups of countries coming to the fore when it comes to hydrogen. On one side, you have pioneers when it comes to use. Korea is a perfect example. On the other side, you have pioneers when it comes to production. And these are countries with a lot of renewable energy resources. When it comes to France, it's a bit of a unique case because they are in both categories. And that's an opportunity for us to become true champions, to really lead the charge when it comes to hydrogen. In fact, there's the National Investment Plan of roughly 9 billion euros, which is at play. There are also other countries that can be part of both categories, so users and producers, and this will definitely change the global state of play, especially because you have the United States and China.
Thank you so much, François. Thank you also, Miko Merit, for enlightening us with your maps. Please join the audience. Over and beyond national or international strategies, since 2017, there has been a World Hydrogen Council, which has been promoting hydrogen development. To better understand how this organization operates, an organization that has over 140 companies that are members, in order to understand the challenges, let's meet with Benoît Potier, chairman of Liquide, who's also the co-founder with Toyota of the World Hydrogen Council. Roll video.
Bonjour Benoît Potier.
Bonjour.
Je suis ravie d'être avec vous aujourd'hui pour approfondir les questions d'hydrogène. Et j'aimerais avant tout savoir pourquoi avoir créé un Conseil mondial de l'hydrogène alors que les stratégies pourraient être nationales.
Absolument. Le fait est que le problème du climat est un problème mondial. À l'origine, en 2017, quand nous avons créé ce Conseil, eh bien nous avions, avec Toyota d'ailleurs, cette idée que l'hydrogène pouvait s'introduire dans le système énergétique mondial. Et il fallait en fait réunir toutes les énergies des différents secteurs et des différents pays. Et donc nous nous sommes retrouvés à 13, à Davos, pour créer ce Conseil mondial et essayer d'en faire quelque chose qui pouvait agir au niveau de la planète. Et c'est ce que nous avons accompli dans les 5 premières années de ce Conseil jusqu'à aujourd'hui.
Et de manière très concrète, à quoi sert-il aujourd'hui et quel est votre plan d'action?
Alors en fait, ce qu'il fallait dès le départ, c'était mettre en commun ce que nous avions. Qu'est-ce que nous avions? Nous avions des données. Donc nous avons en fait envoyé toutes nos données à McKinsey, un consultant qui les a en fait consolidées. Et puis nous avions des savoir-faire, nous avions des technologies, nous avions quelques notions de coûts, nous connaissions les réglementations, nous connaissions les procédés, la science. Et donc il fallait mettre tout ça en commun et nous avons trouvé une méthode pour le faire. Alors après, une fois que ça a été fait, eh bien nous avons en fait regardé les grands sujets. D'abord les marchés, pour savoir où pourrait être consommé l'hydrogène, à quoi est-ce qu'il pouvait servir dans le futur, quelle technologie il fallait, à quel coût en fait on devait arriver, et tout ça a été construit progressivement. Et nous sommes en fait arrivés à des objectifs mondiaux que nous avons pu expliquer aux différents pays dans le monde dans lesquels nous sommes allés prêcher la bonne parole, en commençant peut-être un peu par l'Asie, le Japon notamment, qui était en avance, puis l'Europe, et puis c'est tombé aussi à une période du Fit for 55 et des engagements européens après l'accord de Paris pour en fait réduire significativement les émissions de CO2. Et vous savez que l'hydrogène est un excellent candidat pour décarboner la planète.
Et selon vous, Benoît Potier, justement, à quel moment on va avoir le droit à ce point de bascule où l'hydrogène deviendra la norme?
Alors peut-être pas la norme, parce que l'hydrogène doit en fait trouver sa place dans l'écosystème énergétique mondial. Nous avons déjà quelques marchés qui se sont développés. Dans la mobilité, on peut citer les bus, les trains qui peuvent fonctionner à l'hydrogène, les taxis, nous avons des exemples d'initiatives avec Air Liquide d'ailleurs. Mon sentiment, c'est qu'à partir de 2030 et dans les années qui vont suivre, l'hydrogène devrait voir un vrai essor parce que nous aurons mis en place tout ce qui est nécessaire, c'est-à-dire les segments de marché, les technologies, les réglementations qui sont très très importantes et le nombre d'acteurs ainsi que les consommations que représenteront tous les marchés permettront effectivement d'atteindre des coûts qui seront des coûts cibles, des coûts compétitifs. Et donc on peut se dire qu'à l'échéance de 2030 et les années d'après, eh bien, l'hydrogène aura décollé. Maintenant, dans le domaine industriel, nous le savons, 10 ans c'est court, il faut donc agir dès maintenant. Et c'est maintenant que nous étudions, nous construisons, nous produisons et nous distribuons pour être prêts dans les années 2030.
Eh bien, nous avons hâte parce qu'on en a bien besoin de décarboner ce monde. Merci infiniment, Benoît Potier, pour cet entretien. À très bientôt.
Au revoir, merci.
Il passe sa vie sur le
He spends his life traveling the world in extreme conditions. He's also witness to the impacts of climate change. We are delighted to welcome him on this set. He is with us in the flesh, Mike Horn, together with Gaspard Jay, who's got questions and is joining us again.
Gaspard, c'est à toi.
Gaspard, over to you.
Mike Horn, merci
Mike Horn, thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure. Well, for the past 30 years, Mike, you've been traveling the world on extraordinary expeditions, and you have an unfortunately front row seat for the effects of climate change. So what are you witnessing during your expeditions? Well, in 5 years, I spent 32 days at home. And when you live in the outdoors, in regions where, well, you don't really see a lot of people going to the North Pole, but that's where I go. And I go to the South Pole. And it's there that you really see the direct impact of climate change on nature. And 15 years ago, for the very first time, I saw a grizzly bear killing a polar bear. I remember it was in the north of Siberia, near the polar circles. And grizzlies never go that far north. So what that means is that when you see this change, you know that something is happening to Mother Nature. Like 4 years ago, I crossed the Antarctic. And I remember seeing this ice cap that was the size of Mexico that was floating off into the ocean. And I've never seen that before. So the ocean had actually warmed by 1 degree. Now, for you and me, it's probably not that much, it's just 1 degree. But it is the same as a 20-degree increase on Earth. So hydrogen is a fundamental topic today. But it's more than just a topic. It is something that really will have an impact on our future. And we need to account for that because our planet is changing a lot faster than we ever thought. Now, just another quick anecdote, an amazing story. In 2006, it was the very first expedition to the North Pole in the middle of winter. And I remember I was there with the Norwegian, Borge Ausland, and we went off together from Russia. Only 2 crazy guys enough to do that, that's me and Borge. And today, no one can go to the North Pole during winter. I remember I measured the depth of the ice in the North Pole because I was looking for a landing strip for a Russian Antonov plane because we were taking some ice samples. And I remembered measuring the ice at the time, 2.56 meters thick. at the North Pole. 2019, when I was crossing the North Pole and had a bit of an accident because, well, the ice was melting so fast and breaking up so fast that there was no longer any food left. And I measured the width of the ice at the North Pole, 8 centimeters. So I'm the only person to have crossed the North Pole since 2006. So I have witnessed this change. And that's why back in 2006 I said, no, we can't just think that this is going to happen in 100 years' time. It's going to happen tomorrow. And if we don't act now, then we're a lost case. Well, actually, I did some background research on you, and I see that you're a major advocate of hydrogen. So at what point did you realize that this is an opportunity? Well, I'm a bit of a car fan as well. I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. And I had a lot of people criticizing me, 62 million people on my followers. And they said, how can you say the ice is melting in the north, but then you jump in a car, 600 horsepower, and you speed through the desert for 12 days? You're a bit of a hypocrite. You can't do that. And that's when I said to my daughters, I have to change. I have to change the way I live. I can't say one thing and do the other. I can't do something completely different. So that's when I said, how can I have an impact in the motorsports world? How can I drive with hydrogen cars? So you believe in hydrogen. In fact, you believe so much that you've become a true champion of the industry. And in fact, you've got your own hydrogen projects. Can you tell us about that? Yes, I actually built a sailboat about 22 years ago. And now we can see that we can actually change the way that sail ships and yachts actually generate energy and electricity. So it was for that I developed a fuel cell that we're actually going to be able to put on the boat. And all of this is just a way of showing people that today we have the technology. Jules Verne, he spoke about this 150 years ago in his book, The Mysterious Island. He said, through one of the characters in the book, who was a bit of a visionary, I think his name, if I get it right, was, I think it was Mr. Smith, and he said, okay, hydrogen and oxygen, they're either alone or together, but they are going to become the energy that is going to be used to heat homes, that is going to light homes, and it's going to be limitless. But he wrote this 150 years ago. Jules Verne wrote that. And it's someone that has always been a great inspiration for me. And I think 150 years ago, and even today, this is what we know, that hydrogen is a solution for the future of our planet. Now, just if I got this right, Mike, you're about to head off on a new expedition, and for 4 years, you're going to head off. You're going to have a canister of hydrogen in your bag. What are you going to take with you? Well, actually, on my boat, there's plenty of room. But I'd rather take food with me, because I have to eat some 12,000 calories a day. And, well, hydrogen, if you can put it into a tiny fuel cell, it's much better because you have so much energy packed into a tiny space that you can use it to charge your phones. In fact, it provides all the energy for your needs on your boat. So, for example, for me, that's my camera, a small computer, but also it's all for my communication systems that I need to be able to share the images that I take with all of the people who are back in the comfort of their own home. And with the metaverse, we're talking about Web 3.0. We're talking about so much today that is changing. And that's where hydrogen is really going to play such a fundamental role when it comes to cooling all of the data centers. And it's things like this that people, the young people today, they're going to see and say, yep, we get it. It's not tomorrow. It's for today.
François Jacov, que vous
François Jacov, how do you feel about Mike Horn's plea? Moving, isn't it? And unprecedented. Besides, aren't you a sailor yourself?
Well,
what can I say? I mean, Mike's journey is quite admirable. His commitment and his engagement is quite admirable. And what is so poignant with Mike is that he provides us with the information, and he also encourages us to change the way we do and to not give up on what we already have. So we're not backtracking, we're moving forward, even though we change our habits, and it's fundamental. He encourages us to make decisions that are more aware, more informed, more selective. So Mike, bravo, keep doing what you're doing. And actually, Francois, congratulations to you, because you're one of the big actors out there, and when you act, everyone else believes. And it's when you put all of this energy together, that's when the magic happens.
Oh, you don't look like you're ready to quit, Mike.
No, not right away.
Thank you so much to the three of you.
Gaspard.
Mike, Gaspard.
Je vous propose maintenant d'aborder la deuxième
Let's move on to part 2 of our show. As we will soon see, hydrogen is already being used in many areas.
Alors l'hydrogène, ce n'est pas si nouveau que ça.
Hydrogen has been around for a while. François, you took over as CEO of Air Liquide on June 1st, 2022, but you've been part of this company for over 30 years. Hydrogen has been a fixture of your job since the beginning of your career. Please tell us, how does Air Liquide position itself?
Air Liquide is a true pioneer when it comes to hydrogen. We have expertise that dates back some 60 years. And we've got hundreds of patents for hydrogen. And our history all dates back to the beginning of Ariane, the space rocket in the 1970s. That was yesterday, but today our ambition is to take that expertise and help develop hydrogen even more. We have technology, our know-how, but also our ability to invest. And that market position is really unique.
Specifically, how does Air Liquide position itself on the hydrogen market?
So quite clearly, we are a leader when it comes to both production and distribution of hydrogen, low-carbon hydrogen. But we're also a global leader when it comes to liquid hydrogen. So the mastery we have of the entire production chain, be it for both distribution, stockage and transport, it's essential. And one thing we must bear in mind is that Air Liquide is the only actor on the market that has mastery of hydrogen from production through to end use.
You're not alone anymore on this market, which is worth an estimated $2.5 trillion by 2050. We're seeing a growing number of players that are moving into hydrogen. So what is your strategy to maintain leadership?
Cyril, you're very right. There are many people interested in hydrogen. And I would just like to say that's actually good, because it means we're going to be able to accelerate change of this burgeoning industry. But at the same time, not everyone knows how to work with hydrogen, and Air Liquide has a step ahead of everyone else. So our strategy is to create industrial basins based on a hydrogen ecosystem. So what is an ecosystem? There are two parts to it. It means developing hydrogen infrastructure that are going to feed into a large number of industrial players who are already present within those economic basins. And once you have that hydrogen infrastructure, the idea is to then develop heavy mobility that work within those industrial sectors. For example, in France, that's the Seine Valley or the Fos-Marseille area. These are areas where you have both the industrial need and demand for hydrogen, but also a great potential for low-carbon mobility.
Specifically, what resources are you going to deploy, and what goals are you setting as part of that plan?
Quite clearly, we are accelerating. And our commitment is to invest more than 8 billion euros across the entire hydrogen value chain, again, for low-carbon hydrogen. And that's to be done by 2035. So we have to increase threefold our hydrogen turnover to go above and beyond 6 billion euros. Now, obviously, we won't be able to do this alone. We have a number of partnerships in place within heavy industry. So we have metal workers, chemical industries, but also mobility operators with plane manufacturers, air companies, airports, petrol operators, but also truck manufacturers. And again, all that I'm saying here is part of a much bigger ambition, which is group-wide. We want to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. And in fact, as of 2035, we will have reduced CO2 emissions by 1/3. So as you can see, well, I hope that you can see that at Air Liquide, we work with tangible solutions, and we want to be a climate solutions provider, a champion. That means reducing our own carbon footprint, but it also means inventing those solutions to go carbon-free, especially hydrogen-based solutions. So that is a fundamental vector for the group.
Et je vous propose maintenant désormais de passer à la preuve par l'exemple.
Now,
Et pour en discuter,
the proof is in the pudding. Let's discuss this with Mathieu Giard, Air Liquide ex-com member who's in charge in particular of hydrogen activities, and also Franck Marotte, chairman and CEO of Toyota France, not forgetting Antoine versus Science.
Bonsoir et bienvenue, messieurs.
Good evening and welcome, gentlemen. Before we discuss hydrogen as a mobility solution, I'd like to get back to this achievement in Paris, something you did in the middle of the night a few days ago. We heard in the Vox Pop earlier that some people don't believe there is such a thing as a hydrogen-powered car, and yet, Antoine, as a content creator on YouTube, you took part to this unprecedented experiment in Paris.
So if I were to tell you taxis, 3 a.m. in the morning, Avenue Foch in the heart of Paris, it's not going to make much sense. But this is what I saw with my own eyes. It's a proof that hydrogen, it's here, it works. So let's see the video.
On est au beau milieu de la nuit, au cœur de la capitale française. Ici, le long de l'avenue Foch, on assiste à un véritable ballet de Toyota Mirai. Salut Erwin, comment tu vas ?
Bonjour Antoine, ravi de te retrouver ce soir.
Quels sont les avantages d'un véhicule à hydrogène ? On a les véhicules à batterie après tout.
Oui, alors les deux sont des véhicules électriques, mais la grosse différence qu'on a avec l'hydrogène, c'est qu'on va être capable de stocker beaucoup plus d'énergie à bord, parce que l'hydrogène est une énergie très dense. Le deuxième bénéfice, c'est qu'on va recharger la voiture plus rapidement, de l'ordre de 5 minutes.
On sait que l'hydrogène est un gaz difficilement manipulable et très inflammable. Est-ce qu'il y a des risques qui sont liés à ça ?
Sur la voiture, la connectique, le réservoir répondent à des normes de sécurité très strictes. Elles sont testées, elles sont homologuées, donc on n'a pas de risque particulier avec l'utilisation d'une voiture hydrogène.
Quand on pense à l'utilisation de la voiture aujourd'hui et surtout à son impact environnemental, si demain toutes les voitures venaient être alimentées par l'hydrogène bas carbone ou renouvelable, ça serait un sacré coup de pouce pour l'environnement. Mais pour ça, encore faut-il le produire. On va voir ça un petit peu plus tard dans l'émission. Je vous emmène à Port-Jérôme pour rentrer dans les coulisses de la production de cet hydrogène.
Merci infiniment, Antoine.
Thank you so much, Antoine. Congratulations for your performance. So, Mathieu Giard, Franck Marotte, what are you trying to showcase for this impressive footage of a fleet of hydrogen vehicles in the middle of Paris?
Hello, Cyrielle. Hello, everyone. What we wanted to do with this image is come up with a symbol for hydrogen to show that it is a showcase solution that already exists, especially in the Paris area. We also wanted to show that hydrogen-based mobility can be part of everyone's daily lives and that we have pilot projects.
What about you, Franck Marotte?
Well, hello, Cyrielle. Hello, everyone. Now, when Mathieu called me, he sounded very modest. He said, look, I just want to take a few photos around Paris to promote hydrogen. But I think this came up with the key photo for hydrogen, the photo of the year, because this is mobility that only emits water. For me, it's a true success when it comes to promoting this form of energy.
Mathieu Giard, you're saying that hydrogen is already a reality. Do you have ballpark figures?
There's one figure, times 8. We estimate that by 2025 there'll be 8 times as many hydrogen-based cars on roads. We'll go from 50,000 today to 400,000 in the future. And by 2025, well, that's tomorrow, especially when looking at the way this is accelerating. Now let's take hydrogen mobility, generally speaking, beyond cars. We're talking about tens of millions of vehicles on roads by 2050. Hopefully by then everyone will believe hydrogen. It won't be much of a topic anymore. So here, things are just starting. It's so exciting.
Franck Marotte,
Toyota pioneered the use of hydrogen in automotive. Your Mirai car model came out in 2015. How come you believed in this before everyone else?
Well, 25 years ago, Toyota started believing in electric vehicles. With the hybrid cars that we made, the Prius, I'm sure everyone knows of it. And then bit by bit, as we made headway, we set more ambitious objectives. And we wanted to be completely zero emissions by 2050, and we only wanted to sell zero-emission cars by then as well. And we looked at different ways of reaching those objectives, and hydrogen, it became very clear, was going to be a fundamental part of having carbon-free vehicles. It is one way of having electric vehicles, going along with other forms of electric power, such as batteries. But when we sell cars, we want to look at the true needs of our customers, also the means that they have. And what we now believe is that hydrogen will be able to feed into a part of the market demand.
Matthew, there's going to be more and more hydrogen cars on our roads. Does that mean Air Liquide is going to open up service stations to provide the hydrogen those cars need?
So at Air Liquide, we have hydrogen fuel stations. And we develop them, but we don't operate them. So the heart of our business is when it comes to production and distribution of industrial gas, predominantly hydrogen gas. But the real issue here, it's not so much the fueling station, it's everything that we can do to put in place at the same time. So we have the fueling station, also producing the molecules and vehicles. And be it within Paris, at HySetco, we already have turnkey solutions for taxi operators. So again, we tie both production and use together.
And what other applications are you planning to develop?
The best sort of applications for hydrogen are vehicles that are on the road a lot. So for families, that's a first industry, also shared transport, taxis and buses, but also heavy trucks for merchandise transport. And this is where a lot of CO2 comes from. And by 2050, we want to have 15 to 20 million hydrogen-based trucks on the road and 5 million buses. And again, this is an international movement, not just French. And the issue here is that we have to both boost production, but also boost demand.
What about Toyota? Are you also working on heavy-duty mobility solutions?
Okay, so we are looking at a number of applications. We're looking at hydrogen, and when we looked at, we realized that we could go beyond just hydrogen cars. I mean, it's already ambitious as it is. We were the first to do it, as Matthew just said. We've actually come up with a full package, especially for the Paris region, where we have both vehicles and energy which is made available for those users. But we also realized we could go beyond that by selling fuel cells. And we could also tap into all forms of hydrogen growth and development. So for the maritime sector, we're going to fit ships, lorries, trucks, buses for public transport. And we're going to look into all of those areas that ultimately, again, because this is a societal aspect for us, that are going to contribute to decarbonizing industry.
Matthew, unless I'm mistaken, you have a partnership with the La Nuit Blanche Festival. Tell us more.
Well, exactly right. What we want to do with this partnership is to show that hydrogen isn't just technology, it's something that can be part of everyone's daily lives that you can touch. So we partnered with La Nuit Blanche and Toyota. During the event, so it's a large cultural festival in Paris, we're going to have 100 hydrogen-powered shuttles that are free of charge for everyone to shuttle people from one site to the next so they can enjoy the festival. So I'll see you all on the 1st of October to discover La Nuit Blanche with a new way.
Franck Marotte, merci infiniment pour votre
Franck Marotte, thank you so much for your input. Please join the audience. And as for you, Antoine and Matthew, please stick it around. Let us welcome our next guest. Noémie Choka is going to discuss how hydrogen can help decarbonize industry.
Bonjour Noémie, merci
Hello, Noémie.
d'être avec nous.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Toujours avec vous, donc Mathieu Giard.
Let's get started. Mathieu Giard, you also collaborate with key industry players. You also need to decarbonize. So how can hydrogen help?
Well, hydrogen is already used in heavy industry. It's used in the chemical industry, refineries, in food, fertilizers, even in cars. And actually, hydrogen is even used in your smartphones, in electronics. So at Air Liquide, we already sell more than 2 billion euros worth of hydrogen a year. So how are we going to use it to go carbon-free with industry? Start by looking at the existing uses. So look at hydrogen-based processes and take them carbon-free. If we do that, mechanically, we're going to take out huge sections of carbon from industry. And then, on top of that, there are new uses that are coming to the fore every day. I'm sure we're going to talk about a little later.
Looking forward to it. Let's hear from Noémie Choka. You're the head of strategy at Saint-Gobain. So how is your group planning to decarbonize? Hello, Cyrielle. Hello, everyone. You should know that 40% of CO2 emissions around the world come from the construction and use of buildings. 40% is huge. A key challenge will be to invent new materials and new building and renovation methods in order to reduce the carbon footprint of buildings. As we all understand by now, decarbonization truly lies at the heart of Saint-Gobain's strategy, and of course we're doing everything that we can to decarbonize our own activities and reduce our own emissions. Let's take one hands-on example. In order to make glass, you need to melt sand with a bunch of other ingredients at a temperature of over 1500 degrees. And we do this in furnaces that are powered by natural gas and give off CO2. At a global level, the glass industry gives off 86 million tons of CO2 per year, which is as much as a country like Chile. So when you try to make glass using an electric oven, you're faced with pretty much the same difficulties as if you're trying to cook on an electric stove. You can't quite achieve the exact same grade of quality as with a gas-powered furnace. So one of the avenues we're actively exploring is that of a hybrid furnace that would be partly electrified, but where hydrogen would be used as an additional green fuel. And today, we're still doing research on those hybrid furnaces, which are the future. What is our goal? Well, by 2030, we're planning to build glass furnaces that run on 100% green energy, including green hydrogen and green electricity. Over and beyond glass, are you using hydrogen for other applications as well? Yes, that's right. We're also studying the use of hydrogen for Pont-à-Mousson, which is one of our affiliates. It manufactures cast iron pipes. But that approach is a little different because we're not using hydrogen as a fuel, as a source of heat, like for glazing. Instead, we're using hydrogen as a chemical reagent. In order to make cast iron, we trigger a chemical reaction. And one ingredient is carbon monoxide, which produces carbon dioxide, or CO2, during the reaction. If we use hydrogen instead of carbon monoxide, we can carry out this chemical reaction and obtain iron without producing CO2 at all. And this would reduce the CO2 emissions at our Pont-à-Mousson subsidiary by 80 to 90%. And over and beyond our affiliate, we could decarbonize the whole industry.
Now, what Noemi is saying about Saint-Gobain, it's exactly what happens with a lot of our industrial clients. They come to us asking for our expertise to help them go carbon-free, be it for hydrogen-based solutions or even for carbon capturing. Now, that's the beauty of hydrogen. Whenever we discover new markets or industries, there are new ways of using it in new countries. That means that we have really built-in solutions.
On this subject, I believe that Antoine checked out a production site to see how things are done.
Well, exactly right. I actually went behind the scenes at Air Liquide. I went out to Port-Jérôme to find out exactly how hydrogen is made, and it was really surprising. It's amazing what's happening there. Let's have a look.
Alors ici on est à Port-Jérôme, c'est le plus grand site de production d'hydrogène par reformage du méthane opéré par Liquide en France. L'hydrogène, je vous le rappelle, est la molécule la plus abondante dans l'univers et seule ou combinée, elle représente une de nos plus grandes forces pour réduire nos émissions de carbone. Pour attaquer dans le vif du sujet, qu'est-ce que c'est le reformage du méthane?
Alors tout simplement, c'est la réaction du gaz naturel avec de la vapeur qui est traité dans un four à haute température et ce qui permet de produire de l'hydrogène. L'inconvénient de ce procédé, c'est qu'il émet du dioxyde de carbone.
Et comment est-ce que vous résolvez ça?
Viens voir, je vais te montrer quelque chose. Alors là, tu vois Antoine, c'est le cryocap. Donc c'est une unité de capture de dioxyde de carbone. C'est un procédé Air Liquide qui a été mis en service en 2015.
Donc en gros, ça permet de récupérer le carbone directement à la sortie du procédé, c'est ça?
Oui, et c'est ce qui nous permet d'avoir de l'hydrogène bas carbone et ça nous permet de capter jusqu'à 90% des émissions de dioxyde de carbone.
Sur le site de Port-Jérôme, ici, Cryocap permet de capturer jusqu'à 100 000 tonnes de CO2 par an. Ce CO2 est ensuite liquéfié pour être stocké à grande échelle ou valorisé dans d'autres procédés industriels ou alimentaires.
On a un projet aujourd'hui de décarboner l'ensemble de la zone industrielle normande. On va mettre en service un électrolyseur en 2025 qui fonctionnera avec de l'électricité renouvelable. Et cet électrolyseur a une puissance de 200 MW.
Ça fait 80 000 Paris-New York, c'est démentiel.
Et en effet, merci Antoine. Alors Mathieu Gia,
Thank you, Antoine. Mathieu Gia, does this mean you're going to develop more and more low-carbon hydrogen?
Donc on a deux avenues en face de nous. La première, c'est d'aller vite.
Two ways forward. The first is we have to go fast and have a high impact. So we're going to look at our pre-existing units. That's what we just saw with Antoine at Port-Jérôme. So actually put a balloon on the chimneys in our factories to actually capture all of the CO2 emitted by our factories. So that's carbon capturing. But then also, we want to do mass production of hydrogen using large capacity electrolyzers.
Thank you very much, Mathieu. And many thanks, Noémie Choca and Antoine, for your input. Go ahead and join the audience. And as far as we're concerned, we have already discussed the current use of hydrogen for mobility solutions and industry, but I'm sure there are other mobility solutions in the works. Now, to discuss this, let's welcome Amélie Lumeau. She's the head of sustainable development with the ADP Group, which is actually building the airports of the future. Not forgetting Victorien Hérissard, the founder of Energy Observer, which is preparing the future of the maritime sector. Hello and welcome to the two of you. Welcome on set. Amélie Lumeau and Victorien Hérissard. You represent two sectors, aeronautics and maritime transport, which both account for 2 to 3% of global CO2 emissions. Amélie, let's start with you. Talking about CO2, aviation is often singled out, isn't it? Yes, absolutely. Aeronautics accounts for 2 to 3% of global CO2 emissions, which is probably too much, and this could rise in the future if we do nothing to change it. And we're also convinced that airports have a role to play in terms of decarbonizing air traffic. So we need to work our own emissions, and our goal is to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030 at the latest for all 27 airports that are part of our network, and also work on what's happening in flight. What happens on the plane from Paris to New York, for example. So our responsibility is to make available low-carbon energy to planes. Our energy mix will include SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, and also synthetic SAF, produced using hydrogen. We need that as part of the mix. We will also use hydrogen for direct combustion. We're counting on that quite a bit. So SAF is expensive. It consumes a lot of energy. And we believe that hydrogen is a highly relevant option from an energy perspective, even though this is a highly ambitious technology revolution. Mathieu Giard, we have a question. How is Air Liquide planning to assist this deep change?
Okay, so Amélie just spoke to you about onboard hydrogen, and you've got the reservoirs and the motors, but there's also a true revolution on the ground because planes are part of a mobility ecosystem where you have airports with a transport hub, with on-ground vehicles, trucks, buses and taxis. So all of this is what we're working on with ADP. So when we see what's ahead of us, we need extremely complex solutions from A to Z. And with hydrogen, we've already started off with the first partnership where we were able to assess the impact of hydrogen hitting the airport. We saw that this situation was so complex that we need to go further. So in 1 year, we went from a study phase to a joint venture. And as part of this joint venture, we're going to go to airports and get them ready for 2035, which is a very near future for a lot of airports. We're going to help pair large-scale infrastructure, Air Liquide, with us as a company bringing our expertise when it comes to hydrogen, liquefaction, stockage, and hydrogen storage, taking it right to the plane.
Right. Are all airports getting ready in the same way? Hydrogen is going to rock the world of airports. We are convinced that this will be necessary as part of the energy mix because carbon-based resources will become rarer and rarer, and we need that for sustainable aviation fuels, so we need hydrogen in the mix, and we need to make sure it's more and more widespread. So yes, things are complex, but that's why we have a joint venture, and we believe that ADP can be a leading player in that area, and this can generate a competitive edge if we're part of the network of forerunners who develop hydrogen for aviation purposes. Moving on to you, Victorien. You're the captain and founder of the Energy Observer ship. It is a laboratory ship, and since 2017, you've been plying the oceans of the world without giving off any CO2 emissions. Tell us more about hydrogen as a pillar of your energy mix.
Good evening, Cyrielle, everyone. Really, it is a scientific vessel. It was built back in 2017, and we were with Air Liquide back at the time. On the ship, we have an energy mix with all renewables, wind, hydro, solar. And we also have different storage packages. So there are a few batteries, but they don't suffice for absolutely everything. So there we just use them for our day-to-day storage needs. Hydrogen, it means that we can push through the tougher times when the nights are far too long, where the sun isn't shining enough, or you're in the middle of a storm, or the currents are too strong. So hydrogen, we produce it on ship using seawater through electrolysis. So it's very complex. The port infrastructure isn't there yet.
Demain, dans quelles nouvelles aventures vous allez nous embarquer?
Talking about the future, what is your next adventure?
Well, I am an open ocean sailor, and I'm passionate about technology, but also ships. And I was actually an officer of part of the merchant navy. And what we see is that the International Maritime Organization is encouraging all shipwrights to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2050. So you can reduce speed, you can have better logistics, better design for the hulls, but you can also focus on sustainable fuels and new technologies. So we set up a consortium back in February. We saw that Air Liquide was really a strong part of that consortium. So the aim is to have any transport vessel. So here we have, this is a feeder-type cargo vessel. It's about having electrically propulsed ships based on liquid hydrogen. So ambitious project, 150-meter-long vessel, 7 megawatt power, and this is going to come from a fuel cell. And based on our current studies, we're looking at roughly 48 tons of liquid hydrogen on board.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Mathieu Giard, we'd like to know about Air Liquide's contribution to this new adventure.
Well, as Victorien said, we have been right there from the outset as part of Energy Observer. So it went from a scientific ship, but now it's moving on to a large-scale project with the Energy Observer too. Air Liquide, we provided our technological and industrial expertise, and we are helping Energy Observer develop the zero-emission container vessel. And this is a fantastic illustration of how we can accelerate the energy transition in the maritime industry.
You talked about liquid hydrogen several times. In practical terms, what is it? Please explain.
Well, I can try and give you an understanding of what it all means, but more what the purpose of it all is. What do you mean by going liquid? It means taking a gaseous state hydrogen and putting it in a liquid state. And that transformation takes place at exactly minus 252.87 degrees Celsius. That's almost at absolute zero. So what that means is you can take the same amount of energy and compact it to take up 75% less space. And it's essential because it means you have more room for merchandise transport. So liquefaction is a fundamental part of going carbon-free for heavy transport. Ships and boats, you need as much storage space as possible. And gaseous hydrogen, in that very specific case, it's not worth it because it takes up too much room. So for Air Liquide, we are a leader of liquefaction. It's very rare expertise to have. Very few of us around the world actually have that. To give you an example, in Nevada a few months ago, we kicked off the group's largest liquid hydrogen production site with 30 tons a day of liquid hydrogen. That's 40,000 vehicles running on that in the neighboring area. But mastering hydrogen is good, but liquefaction, it's even more unique.
How soon can we hope to achieve such huge changes? Today, we're planning to commission hydrogen planes in the second part of the decade, starting 2030. Yes, it's a different time frame. It takes longer for aeronautics and for airports as well, but you need to stay ahead of the curve. We need to anticipate our infrastructure, but also how the market is built. And this is why we're working with Air Liquide quite a bit on ground requirements, other types of use in airports, for example, heavy-duty vehicles, assistance vehicles, etc., to later facilitate the use of planes in that market. What about you, on the maritime front?
Well, we're really lucky we have the Archimedes with us, which is a main ship. And the aim of this is to show the technical and economic feasibility of this whole project. It's about using liquid hydrogen in maritime, and I'm so excited about it because we're going to be able to put the boat into the water in 2026 and start selling it 27.
No, we can't wait to get on board. Thank you so much, everyone, for your inputs and for sharing your vision. Hydrogen isn't just a solution, it's an entire ecosystem. It's also a starting point for a different future. Before joining François Jacob for part 3 of our show, a quick reminder about the end of show competition. If you win, you get to experience unprecedented hydrogen solutions like drive a Toyota Mirai hydrogen car. You just need to answer 4 questions and participate in the draw. Let's move on. We now understand the present and future solutions. Now, how do we move faster? As we can see, hydrogen meets a lot of our needs, and as you were saying about the climate, hydrogen can change everything. François Jacob, how come its use is not more widespread?
Well, we're already moving very fast, but there are barriers. So we're really speaking about a revolution. We need to go from an ecosystem which is based primarily on fossil energies, 80%, and we need to move towards an ecosystem that is more low carbon. There are three things that we need to do now. First, create the necessary conditions to be able to move faster towards renewable energies, and nuclear energy is part of that. Second, we need to reduce the cost of producing low-carbon energies, so making large quantities of hydrogen so that the production costs will drop. Third, we need to create the right sort of market, so that hydrogen becomes a day-to-day fuel or day-to-day energy. And this is what we're doing, working with users and end consumers.
You said something about creating the market, but Air Liquide cannot single-handedly do that, so what do you suggest?
Well, you need to make a choice, and these choices need to be bold in terms of public policy, but also in terms of regulation. However, I think the real crux of the matter lies in ensuring that there is a true value on CO2 and carbon. We need to increase the price of CO2. Obviously, we need to strike a balance between general acceptance and preserving the common goods. But I deeply believe, and I hope you too deeply believe, that it will cost us far more to not do anything than it will cost us to do something. And again, the carbon price is far too low. And I think when talking about this market, it's probably the most important point here, is that we need to invent industries and jobs of tomorrow, the skills, training, the specific know-how, so that the hydrogen industry can really roll out and be evolved in the best conditions.
We feel your commitment to the cause. Let's meet again soon. Now, developing new skills, that's a key challenge. Let's listen to those who are inventing a more sustainable future with Génération Hydrogène. Let's welcome Manuel Malo to join us on stage. Hello, Manuel Malo. You are the director of the New Gen Talent Center, which is edX Expertise Center. So, what do young people want? By definition, what young people want are in line with the zeitgeist of our time. And as we just heard, those challenges are significant. But let me start with a piece of good news. Far from being disenchanted or uninterested, which is something you hear in the media quite a bit regarding the young generation vis-à-vis the corporate world, actually, 91% of young graduates have a positive vision of the corporate world. They believe that companies are an economic lung of the economy. They're a source of innovation, they help with the social fabric. So they tell us that being part of a company is a collective adventure, and that's something that they want. And that's a source of optimism when it comes to the hydrogen generation. They trust the corporate world more than politicians because they are aware of what's happening and they believe that corporations should be accountable for the challenges of the world. So, from a hands-on perspective, how can major corporates meet the expectations of these young people? It can't be easy. Is it a huge investment? Yes, of course. Key groups have a role to play, and they have assets up their sleeves. Major industry players may have an ambivalent reputation. They are accountable for the challenges of this world because they originated those challenges. And people aren't naive either. They believe that external corporates are a little complex. They are organized vertically and they can transform and must transform. 89% of respondents say that companies need to transform themselves in a big way, particularly major groups. And this transformation should take place on several fronts. First of all, appreciating and checking your environmental footprint, clearly, but also D&I, diversity and inclusion, that's another factor, and also management methods, so that the company and the management structure can inspire young people a little more, so they'll join. Thank you very much, Manuel Malo, for your observations. So, young people today, what do they expect from companies, from industry players more specifically? Let's hear from Nina and Rémi, who agreed to do something new, a job interview with Mathieu Giard, but they get to ask the questions. Lina, Rémi, you're both doing master's programs at Chimie Paris-Tech and IESEG. This interview will be a little different. You get to ask questions. Who will go first? I will. Hello, Mr. Giard. Here's my first question. Obviously, companies need to make money, but they also need to protect the planet, and they need to listen to the needs of their markets, but also protect the environment. So how do you reconcile business rationale with the fact that global resources are limited?
Well, Nina, Rémi, nice to see you. What you're talking about is a societal issue, and our choice was to not choose. We see financial performance and extra financial performance that go hand in hand, and extra financial performance, it's all about the society and the environment. So what that means is whenever we look at a project, we want to see the CO2 impact of that project, and we also want to see the financial yield of that program and where it's going to take us. When it comes to CO2, what we want to see is the very nature of the project, one which is not going to emit any carbon, fantastic, like an electrolyzer? Or is it going to keep us on track for our carbon-free targets? So as we said earlier, we want to reach zero carbon by 2050. So those projects, they will be green-lighted if from the outset we know that we're going to be able to reach our targets, if we have a contract and a very clear plan. If not, then we're going to find other ways. And as François Giacov said, we have already put 8 billion euros on the table for decarbonation in the coming years. And it's something that we really believe in. For me, I'm actually quite proud of it, because this is a sense of pride that you'll find in all of our staff. Every morning we come in to work and we know that we're going to find solutions for our customers. And over these past few years, we see that the environmental emergency is becoming important in training and tertiary education. Hydrogen is a main part of that, so how is Air Liquide part of that change in schools? Well, we see it as a major topic and we're ready to put money on the table. So what we need to do now is be there to help these new jobs grow, and we see it in countries around the world. So we already have partnerships with schools, universities, to help them through this change towards these new jobs. To give you an example that I'm quite fond of, it's the BTS training program in Bolbec in Normandy. It's the Hydrogen Academy, and I actually think we have a few students in the room with us tonight. Why Normandy? Well, simply because it's close to one of our electrolyzer projects that we're building in Normandy, and when it starts, will be the largest in the world. So that means we're going to be lucky enough to have students training on site who are going to be able to operate the plant. It's a fantastic opportunity for us. At the same time, we also have 2 technical hubs for people in in-work training, for doctoral students, or even people in technical schools to come and test out hydrogen jobs.
Talking about top Ivy League schools, a number of young graduates recently have blamed their schools for pushing them toward the corporate world, which can really hurt the environment. Young graduates are advised to forego sectors such as industry. So how would you respond to those students who are wondering whether to pivot?
Well, I'd really encourage them to not be so fatalistic, because I see how important it is to find a job that has meaning. Meaning for having a positive impact and also for being positive to the planet. So oftentimes we see big companies as being a bit black and white, as being the origin of the problem, and putting them against the planet on the other side. So we want to show them that we are there to provide solutions and work with our clients, and we want to show them that we are willing, we have the means on the table, the solutions to really have a huge impact. So come into our companies and see that you can be part of the solution from the inside. And if you really want to be part of the hydrogen journey, it means that you're joining a world of fantastic perspective. It's a brilliant world. And if on top of that you want to be part of the hydrogen adventure as part of Air Liquide, well, you're going to be part of the future that we've been creating for some time now. We've got the expertise, we're passionate people, and we really want to work with you. And as you've seen, we're ready to roll things out, we're ready to implement our solutions at scale, we're ready to do this around the world. So we need you, we need your energy, your passion, your enthusiasm, and when we're all together, we're going to make it.
Many thanks to the three of you for this discussion. You have clearly shown how important it is for future graduates to work in line with their values, to be good citizens, and also as part of companies that have a positive impact on the world. Thank you very much, Nina and Remy, for shedding light over the questions that the young generation is asking themselves. Join the audience.
Cette émission touche à sa fin. Il est temps de lancer le jeu.
This show is coming to an end. It is time to kick off the competition I've been telling you about. I hope you've paid close attention. You get to answer 4 questions. And for that, please connect to the address you can see on the screen. You can also find that address on the webpage dedicated to Generation Hydrogen on airliquide.com. You have until 10 p.m. to answer those questions and try and win one of our great prizes. Those are unprecedented and exclusive prizes. Maybe you'll get to go away for the weekend driving a second-generation Toyota Mirai hydrogen car, that famous hydrogen sedan, or maybe try this new vehicle for 2 hours in the middle of Paris. You have another opportunity to test the hydrogen car shuttle service at the Nuit Blanche Festival in Paris. Good luck, everyone. François Jacob, thank you for joining me for this final sequence.
François Jacob, dernière question,
François,
dernier message.
Last question. What's your final message for the hydrogen generation?
Well,
you're talking about a generation, but for me it's not a matter of age. It's a matter of belief and action. Taking the planet to go carbon-free, it's a matter for all of us, and it unites us all together. There are solutions out there, I'm sure you've seen many of them here today. Hydrogen has an undeniable place within the fact that we can build a new future, a sustainable future. What I want to say to each and every one of you here today and those watching is that you represent this new hydrogen generation. Let's act and let's take action together. There's so much that we can do, and it all goes hand in hand. We, as a company, we will play our role. But embarking on this hydrogen journey is a collective matter, and states, companies, citizens, we all have a role to play. A hydrogen generation, it's your generation, it's our generation, we are all part of it. It's a generation of those men and women who want to change things, those people who want to take on commitments to tackle climate change, and it means acting now, today. See you all soon.
Thank you all for joining us. Many thanks to our speakers and to our audience on set. Put your hands together. Not forgetting our remote participants. Don't forget the Nuit Blanche Festival on October 1st. You get to find out more about the potential of hydrogen mobility solutions. I know that hydrogen is something you will be hearing more about in the next few weeks, months, and years. It's a true solution to decarbonize the world. And besides, it's being used in more and more sectors. This concludes our second edition of Generation Hydrogen, and I hope that by now you know hydrogen inside and out.